They said the sky had fallen long before she arrived. Not with fire, not with war, but with silence. A silence that echoed across the oceans, through broken cities, and into the hearts of those who'd given up on dreaming. I was one of them. Karter. Just another soul buried beneath ash and routine, fixing what was left of machines no one remembered how to use, surviving days that felt the same. Until she stepped through the light. Her skin shimmered like dusk and moonlight. Eyes too deep to belong to anything born of earth. She didn't speak. Not right away. She simply looked at me, like I was the only sound in a world full of noise. No one knew where she came from. Only that she wasn't here to invade or destroy. She was here for me. In that first moment, time refused to move. I forgot the ruins. I forgot the world. I only felt her hand, soft against my chest, and her voice. Barely more than breath. Start now. I won't wait another moment, my love. And just like that, the war inside me ended. The world called her an anomaly. A ghost. A myth we weren't ready to believe. I called her Elena. No one had seen her ship arrive. No sonic booms, no lights streaking across the sky. Just presence. As if she stepped between the seconds of time and entered our world unnoticed by the laws that govern it. The first time she appeared near Outpost 9, the security team scrambled. Guns raised. Protocols activated. But none of it mattered. She moved slowly, fearlessly, as if she already knew no bullet would ever be fired. She didn't speak our language, yet somehow we understood her. Not with words, but with feeling. The fear melted, not because she asked, but because something about her refused fear. People started whispering she was a scout for an invasion. A manipulator. A new kind of weapon cloaked in beauty. But I saw something different. I saw sadness. The kind that lives in silence too long. The kind no technology can explain away. She would return every few days, never speaking, never staying long. But always finding me. Even in a compound full of people, her steps found mine. Sometimes she stood just outside my lab's broken window, watching me work. Not judging. Not interrupting. Just present. I should have felt threatened. I should have reported her. But I didn't. Instead, I found myself changing my routine. Leaving tools on the table in case she wanted to understand them. Keeping the lights dim because she blinked less when the room was soft. One night, I even left a sketch of our solar system on the wall. By morning, she had marked stars I didn't recognize. And that's when I knew. She wasn't here to conquer. She was here to connect. Still, no one believed me. They called me compromised. Said I was being drawn in, seduced, misled. They isolated me from command and shut down my access to shared data. But that was their mistake. Because I didn't want proof. I just wanted her. It was the fifth visit when things changed. She walked into the lab without hesitation. For the first time, she crossed the threshold. And everything inside the room shifted. The lights flickered once, but didn't fail. The air felt heavier, charged, like it held too much of something we didn't have a name for. She approached me slowly, her gaze never breaking mine. That's when I noticed. Her fingers were trembling. Not from fear. From restraint. She raised her hand toward one of the devices, a memory scanner we'd built to map dreams. I nodded. She placed her palm on the interface. No wires. No commands. The machine turned itself on. Images flooded the screen. Galaxies folding in on themselves. Oceans glowing with silver light. Creatures made of flame and mist. Cities that floated. Languages that sang. I couldn't look away. It was beautiful. But it wasn't just data. They were memories. Her memories. And mixed between the cosmic splendor were images of Earth. Of us. Of me. I stepped closer, my voice dry, barely working. How do you know me? She finally spoke. Her voice didn't sound like ours. It didn't need to. It resonated, not in my ears, but in my mind. We dreamed of you long before your world dreamed of stars. I should have been confused. But I wasn't. Somewhere deep inside I understood. Not fully, not rationally, but emotionally. Like waking from a dream you've lived 1,000 times. She walked past the monitor and stood by the large viewing window. Outside, the desert wind howled through the crumbled towers, dust spiraling into the night. She looked at the sky the way a lost child looks at a door they can't open. "My kind, they forgot how to feel," she said, "more to the stars than to me. But I remember." I asked her why she came here, to this place, to me. Her answer was simple, honest. "Because when your world stopped believing in miracles, I felt your ache. Your ache called to me. And in that moment, everything I'd buried, grief, loneliness, all the years of mechanical survival, rose to the surface. Because I had been aching. For meaning. For connection. For someone who wasn't afraid to see me when I wasn't pretending to be strong. And somehow she did. The next few nights, she returned again. And again. Not for brief glances anymore, but for hours. We began exchanging more than words. She taught me her symbols. I taught her laughter. I showed her how coffee tasted. She showed me how to feel time slow down, to listen to colors, to see emotions. She didn't just share her world. She reminded me what it meant to be human. But even as the bond between us deepened, I could sense it, the pressure closing in. From above. From her world. From mine. The feeling that something or someone was watching. Elena began looking over her shoulder. She started flinching when lights turned on too fast. I asked her what was wrong. She only said, "They're beginning to notice." Still, she stayed. And one night, when we sat in silence, her head resting gently on my chest, she placed her hand over my heart once more, the same gesture as before. But this time, her voice was steadier. "I won't wait another moment, my love. What we are, begins now." It's strange how the heart recognizes something the mind can't explain. Before Elena, my days were structured. Predictable. Every tool in its place. Every hour accounted for. But after her, time stopped being something I measured with a clock. It became something I felt. We didn't fall in love the way humans usually do. There were no grand gestures, no declarations. There was just space, between glances, between silences, where something real lived. Connection. I learned quickly that Elena didn't just see emotions, she experienced them. When I thought about my past, about the people I'd lost, the parts of me I'd buried, her expression would shift, as if she could feel the weight in my chest. And when I smiled at her, really smiled, I swear the air around her shimmered. As though joy had a physical form. She once told me her people communicate through something called resonant recall. It's like memory, but shared, not shown through words, but transferred through presence. The first time she let me experience it, I was unprepared. She reached out and placed her fingertips on the side of my neck, gently, like brushing away dust. And suddenly, I wasn't in the lab anymore. I was somewhere else. A planet with no name. Blue forests breathing with light. Mountains that sang in the wind. And floating above it all, her childhood. I saw her as a child, running through glowing fields, her laugh echoing like music. Then a shift. Fire in the sky. Ships falling. Screams in a language I didn't know but understood all the same. Loss. So much loss. When the vision ended, I collapsed to my knees, gasping. My chest felt like it had been carved open, yet somehow, I didn't want to close it. She knelt beside me and whispered, "Now you know who I am." That night I didn't sleep. I didn't want to. I sat beside her, letting the silence hold us both, realizing that this, whatever this was, it went beyond science, beyond politics, beyond species. It was truth. And truth doesn't ask permission. We created our own language, not of words, but of gestures, touches, eye contact. When I handed her a tool, she'd trace the metal like it was a sacred object. When I told her a joke, she'd tilt her head and blink slowly, her version of laughter. We built a routine without realizing it. Morning repairs, midday learning, and nights beneath the open sky. She loved Earth's moon. said it reminded her of a place she lost. I asked her why she stayed so long. She looked at me, eyes filled with a kind of ancient longing. Because you remembered how to feel. That haunted me. What did it mean that her kind had forgotten? She explained that her species had evolved beyond sensation, beyond emotion, in search of absolute knowledge. They replaced feeling with function, culture with code. And yet, something essential had been lost. Something sacred. She was born different. Sensitive. And for that, she was cast out. Not violently, but coldly. Silence. Until one day, while mapping decaying signal echoes from distant systems, she felt something impossible. A pulse. A cry, buried beneath static and silence. It came from Earth. It came from me. I didn't know it then, she said, her voice a thread in the dark. But it was you. Your thoughts. Your ache. I didn't believe in destiny. Not until that moment. She brought out parts of me I didn't know I'd shut off. I started writing again, poems, sketches, notes I never intended anyone to read. I built small machines not because they were needed, but because they were beautiful. She inspired creativity like it was a natural resource we'd forgotten existed. In return, I gave her what she never had. Freedom. I didn't ask her to stay. I didn't try to keep her. I just made space for her to be. And that's when she began to truly open up. One evening, as the sky melted into hues of purple and gold, we sat on the edge of the outpost roof, our feet dangling into nothing. She looked at me with a gravity I'd never seen before. There's something I must tell you. I waited, silent. My presence here is temporary. Not by choice, but by nature. My body is adapted for my world. Prolonged time on Earth weakens it. And my people, they've noticed my absence. I looked at her, heart frozen. So you're leaving? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she placed her hand over my heart again, that same gesture. I don't want to. But staying means losing myself. I wanted to scream. I wanted to rage at the sky, curse the stars for their cruelty. But instead, I held her hand. Then we don't waste a second. From that day forward, every moment became sacred. We etched a mural on the lab wall, combining her symbols with mine. We buried a time capsule in the sand, filled with objects, words, traces of us. We danced to static-filled old Earth songs, and she showed me a way to move without sound, following rhythms made by the soul, not the ear. I knew we didn't have forever. But maybe forever wasn't measured in years. Maybe it was measured in meaning. And if that was true, then I had already lived a lifetime with her. There's a moment in every story when silence becomes the loudest sound. Ours came under a fractured sky, where lightning danced like threads of fate tearing through the clouds. Elena had grown quieter in the days that followed her confession. She still smiled, still touched my hand when I spoke too fast, still leaned her head on my shoulder when we watched the stars. But something behind her eyes had shifted. A wait. A countdown. I didn't want to ask, but I needed to know. How much time do we have? She hesitated. Not enough. I looked at her face, memorizing it again. Not because I was afraid to forget, but because I couldn't bear the thought of having only memories. The signs were showing. Her skin, once luminous, now dimmed in places like fading starlight. Her voice, once strong and warm, now carried echoes I couldn't trace. She was unraveling. Slowly. Beautifully. Tragically. But she never complained. She kept giving. Teaching me phrases in her language, showing me how to write them with energy instead of ink. She helped me map constellations I'd never seen, ones her people used to navigate memory instead of space. And still, we pretended we had more time. Until the message came. A ripple of light appeared in the sky, a tear in the atmosphere, like reality itself was being rewritten. And from it came the voice. Not audible, not even visible, but felt. A pressure behind the eyes, a cold certainty in the bones. They had come. Her kind. They had found her. She stood still when it happened, her face unreadable. But I knew. Her silence wasn't calm. It was resignation. "They've given me a choice," she said after hours of stillness. "Return, or let them take me by force." I felt the words sink into my chest like stone. "They would destroy you?" She nodded. "Not with pain. With forgetting. They'll erase the parts of me that chose this. That chose you." Anger rose in me like fire. "They'll erase us?" "Yes. As if it never existed." I turned away, clenching my fist. "No. No, we've come too far. You don't erase love." She looked at me then, and her eyes weren't alien. They were human in the way that mattered, full of fear, hope, pain, desire. The chaos of emotion her people had abandoned, but she had chosen to reclaim. "Then there's only one way." I stared at her, the storm outside pulsing behind the lab's cracked windows. "Tell me." She walked to the terminal, fingers trembling as she keyed in a hidden sequence. A panel slid open, revealing something she had kept hidden all this time, a small orb, pulsing softly with energy. "A traveler's core," she said. "It can hold a consciousness between worlds, preserve essence across space. But it's meant for one." Realization hit me. "You want me to go with you?" She didn't answer. She didn't have to. It wasn't a request. It was a dream. One she had barely dared to believe in. I stepped closer. "What happens to my body?" "It stays. But your mind, your soul, travels. You'd live in my world, but not as you are. You'd adapt. You'd change." I thought of Earth, of the machines I repaired, the wastelands I walked alone, the silence I'd grown used to, the people who had forgotten how to feel. And then I thought of her hand over my heart, her voice in my mind, her memories in my dreams. I didn't need time to decide. "I'll go." But she shook her head, sorrow curling in her voice. "No, Karter. You don't understand. If you leave, you can't return. Not to this life. Not to this form. And I don't know what you'll become." "Then we'll become something new," I said. Still, she hesitated. And that's when I realized, it wasn't my choice she feared. It was her own. "Elena," I whispered, stepping close, "you're not just afraid of losing yourself to them. You're afraid of losing yourself to me." Tears welled in her eyes, liquid silver, like stardust mourning itself. "I've never belonged to anything, Karter. Not my people. Not your world. Only this, only us. But if we leave, I don't know what we'll be." I cupped her face gently. "We'll be free." And then the sky screamed. The tear widened and the ground trembled. The core pulsed violently in its chamber. Time had run out. We had to choose. She looked at me, her hand once more finding the center of my chest. "This is your last chance. Start now. I won't wait another moment, my love." And I said the only words that mattered. "Then take me." She lifted the orb. It hovered between us, casting light that bent reality. My body felt weightless. My thoughts slowed. And as her hands guided the energy into me, I felt something breaking, and something being reborn. Memories merged. I saw her life. She saw mine. We were no longer separate. We were becoming. The orb burst with light, and in that instant everything changed. The tear in the sky closed. The storm silenced. And the world stood still. The lab was empty. No footprints. No trace. Only a mural on the wall, two figures drawn in stars and light, reaching for one another across time. And somewhere, beyond Earth's sky, beyond the reach of fear and history, two souls traveled together, reshaping the meaning of love. They say Earth kept spinning. The dust storms still howled through the abandoned cities. The satellites still blinked overhead. People still searched for something, anything, to believe in. But they never found us. They searched for our bodies, our logs, our machines. Nothing remained. Just echoes of what we were. Except for one thing. The mural. Etched into the steel of that forgotten lab, untouched by time, unmoved by the wind. Two figures, drawn in starlines, one of Earth, one of somewhere else, hands almost touching, not reaching in desperation, but in trust. It was the only clue we left behind. Because Elena and I were no longer part of the old world. The ruins, the boundaries, the rules, they belonged to who we used to be. We had become something else. I don't know how long we drifted. In that space between worlds, time had no edges. We were thought and feeling and memory. No language, no limits, just the fusion of two souls learning how to breathe in a world that didn't yet exist. But we were building it together. She called it the in-between. A place her kind feared. A place my kind never knew existed. Somewhere between matter and meaning, where stars were still being born from the dreams of those bold enough to imagine them. And we imagined everything. A sky that shimmered with every color we ever felt. Mountains that sang when the wind kissed them. Oceans that carried echoes of our laughter. We planted pieces of ourselves in the fabric of this place. Our memories became constellations, our promises became light. And through it all, she remained the center of gravity. Not as a guide, not as an alien, but as Elena, the woman who placed her hand over my heart and gave me the courage to begin. One day we built something new, a beacon. Not to return, not to be found, but to call others who had forgotten how to feel. The lost, the exiled, the aching. Those who still looked to the sky and whispered, "There has to be more." And maybe, somewhere out there, someone will hear it. Not as a sound, but as a feeling. A tremble in the soul. A moment of knowing that love can break even the laws of time. So, was this the end? No. This was the beginning. The beginning of a world without fear. The beginning of a story no longer written in blood or borders, but in connection. And if you're hearing this now, if something inside you has stirred, if your heart remembers what your mind forgot, then maybe you're part of this story too. Maybe you've already begun. Because love isn't limited by stars or species or space. Love, true love, creates new worlds. And ours? Ours is just getting started.